Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Victor. Go ahead.
We're back once again. We have a very special panel. We wanted to understand outside of what we typically look at when we think about technology, and we wanted to put more of a focus and emphasis on the practitioners, but not just practitioners, those that are doing and creating and building in this new virtual ecosystem of interaction and communication that we abide in. A kaleidoscope of experts and talent, and from those that have been building and have honed in on their craft of what they care about so much. They're here to join us today, and we're happy to have them each. All of our speakers, we welcome you. We ask that you mute your mics while we have you, and as we summons you here, we bring you on. And what we're going to do is we're going to introduce each of you. And we're going to start with Harrison and move forward. Introduce and please share with the audience who you are and what you do and what you're working on and the relatability towards wellness. Harrison, we welcome you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope you can all hear me well. Just nod your heads if you can. That way I know. Okay, good. So my name's Harrison Kramer, and I'm a virtual magician. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, magicians all over the world were like, what are we going to do? This is the weirdest thing. We can't leave our houses. All of our events are canceled. And it turned out that magic, especially interactive magic, worked really well on Zoom. So I made a page about it on my website. I started getting hundreds and even thousands of inquiries. And I've done about 2,000 virtual events over the past 3 years and kind of really developed my own little thing that I do on Zoom with anything from, one group of people or one person or a group of people in one room all the way up to, thousands of people all over the world. So now in kind of a post-pandemic view, I am 100% a virtual magician. I focus on this because I did so many shows. I've seen the power of what's possible. So I'm now taking the concepts that I've discovered with virtual magic and the amazing use cases that it has, and I'm kind of sort of crafting them to apply to a post-pandemic world where people can really utilize the values of virtual magic beyond the need to entertain people in a virtual space for a pre-planned meeting. So that's what I'm doing here today. Just came to sort of learn from all of you and talk to you all about sort of what I do and then why I think it's so unique. And really, my programs are all about, well-being and wellness. What I'm able to do is bring together any group of people, no matter the size, no matter their interests, even no matter the language that they speak, and definitely not no matter the location. And I can do sort of this general purpose social event that allows everybody to laugh and have fun and feel together in that moment. So that's sort of what I've created. And I'm looking forward to learning from the rest of you.
Thank you, Harrison. We welcome you. Jesper, we welcome you here to WellVerse Day 2. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm a Jasper, so I do personal training where I help my clients live a more healthier life and what we can say be more functional throughout the day. So I focus more on performance, help with flexibility, mobility, and overall strength, and also diet and nutrition, where I'm currently writing a book about more like food and diet, everything I wish I knew before going into living a more healthy life. And in my work, I try to break everything down into universal principles that you can use anywhere in the world at any given time. And And I'm also part of a startup where we are working with the arts, how we can use art as a therapy tool to improve your well-being and a social emotional state. Yeah.
Thank you, Jesper. We welcome you. Bobby, we welcome you, and we're happy to see you here at WellVerse.
Hello, how are you? Appreciate it. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Bobby Khalil, I'm the Director of Performance at the Spire Academy and the managing member of a software platform and app called Bodies Done Right. And for about 22 years now, I've been someone who's loved wellness. From being a massage therapist to degrees in exercise science, I've kind of created a philosophy where you combine the holistic approach of health and wellness coupled with the scientific approach that has already been proven. And I try to mix it all into a nice little ball that, hopefully can provide, support to help someone reach their potential from mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, nutritionally, spiritually, whatever level, by getting to know the individual, by getting to understand them at a deeper level. In turn, I just received our 12th patent while we are in the process of designing a platform to support this. It utilizes avatar technology and AI. It's very new in a way that's going to capture individuals' information via assessments, healthcare records, all the way through physical assessments. And it's then going to provide an avatar-driven program that can be dictated by any Bluetooth-enabled device. And so we're in the process of helping and hopefully growing this solution that is going to be able to support different populations of people based on their disease state, based on their health state, athletic level or not, and provide them a tool, a lifestyle management tool that they can kind of take with them and be guided by this avatar.
Terrific. And Bobby, we welcome you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Tyron Walsh, we welcome you here to WellVerse. Tell us who you are and what you do, sir. Your mic, sir. I guess we still need you to unmute it.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Welcome.
Right. I must be the last person into the out of the Stone Age to the Silicon Age. And as I say, never work with dogs or people or children, is it? Right. So, right. I will start, if I can find the connection. There we are. Are we good? Can you hear me?
We hear you well. We did for a moment.
Right. You do again, do you?
You're good.
Lovely. Okay. Right. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a different magic trick which happened about 27,000 years ago. And everything that's happening today with ChatGTP, the conferences and everything, owe a debt to this magic trick that happened between 27,000 years ago and 40,000 years ago. And it was when the Stone Age man trained a wolf. And before that, humans were, or the humanoid life form was nomadic. And it would go from A to B to C, always in fear of predators. And then somebody noticed that if you keep food about 50 meters away from the cave, the wolves will come in, but they'll stop. And then suddenly you've got a security blanket around the cave, meaning you don't need to move along anymore. And that was the beginning of settlements, the start of the agricultural age, the beginning of the industrial age, where we are today with ChatGTP and the digital age. And it's like we've come full circle because every laptop that anybody is using to watch this is dependent on silicon, which is partly stone. So we really are in part 2.0 of the Stone Age revolution. And the dog internet is basically trying to recreate that first bond between man and animal. And we are using both the ancient Stone Age way of looking at relationships, and we're also looking at the Silicon world, because we have put together an ebook which enables children to understand how you manage a dog. We've created an online course to help every volunteer in the world who's thinking of working with a rescue shelter. And that course is free to every volunteer and rescue shelter worker anywhere in the world. And we're also working on the VR and AR technologies to bring the dog, not just how you manage a dog in your life, but to bring it center stage. Okay, Daisy, say hello to everyone.
We welcome both of you, Kieran, and thank you for sharing that with us. Audience, today we're talking about pets, magic in the human body. While it may seem very unconventional, this type of panel, it is rather appropriate when we start to delve into what we're about to touch on when we look at how wellness in this present digital hybrid age has transitioned. I must ask, in particular, Bobby and Jesper. Bobby, we'll start with you. How has this new arena of work that we've entered into transformed your way of thinking when it comes to the uptake and the upkeep of the human body itself? What has changed, and has it been a value add towards the work that you do, both the technology and the practice of wellness?
Great question. I think it's helped. I think in a lot of ways, what you get to see now is, if you look at it back in the day, you had a lot of people trying to prove their model. And it was sometimes hard to expand on that. It was sometimes hard to share your philosophy or your thoughts. And you were stuck in a population where, maybe there was closed-minded people. Maybe you were stuck with a population who, said what you had or what you were doing was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but you had a select group. Well, now, if you look at where technology is going and you look at really how, people are using it now from a wellness perspective, you could learn a heck of a lot from a lot of different groups and how to take care of your body based on the limitations you may have, or some of the setbacks, or even the fact that you may live in a rural area and you don't have gyms and you don't have places to go. You could find support and programming, not just from exercising, but from mental training to all that, where you may have been getting bad advice or not even any advice. And now there's an opportunity to really take full advantage of that.
As a founder, as a bit of echo, we'll mute you. Okay, thank you, Bobby, and for sharing that. It leads on to my next question with you, Jesper. As someone that personally is a founder of technology, and there are quite literally perhaps hundreds of thousands of us in this world that are innovating from our homes and from desktops and laptops, if you will, Jesper, how much more important has it become in this hybrid workforce where it's not just founders or innovators, if you will, entrepreneurs, but it's whole entire companies and corporations? How much more has wellness become prevalent to be able to reach from HR to those that are working in their homes? What does that look like for your lens? And Harrison, we're about to arrive with a same question for you.
Yeah, so what it caused is that we sit longer during the day, which can both tighten up, for example, our glutes, our hamstring, and cause a problem like back pain. So it's become more important that after a long day or during the day that we make sure that we move around, get our bodies going, as that's what we have been used to for decades and the entire evolution of humans. But you can also see, if from an XR perspective, if you are able as a company to take care of your employees, that might result in they have less sick day, and if they are less sick day, then you have a stronger workforce, and you can maybe start produce more as a company. You can produce more value.
Is technology encouraging us to move more, or is it not encouraging us and it's actually prompting us to move less?
I would say it's both. Uh, so the technology, when it don't encourage us to move more, is when we have to work in front of a computer. But you can also have, for example, technologies like Whoop Strap, where it helps track your calorie burn, how many steps you've done, and you can join these like small teams with small community where you can compete against each other, and then you will be forced to, oh, I need to move more than this person so I can become number one in this week.
From your expert perspective, do you believe that everyone that works in a hybrid economy now, to some degree more or less, that works from their homes, should have some type of smart device to keep them more aware of their health and tracking throughout the day?
Yeah, that's a good question because it very depends on the person. I, for example, spoke to a person where he needs something that where he can track how well he's doing, because in that way he can push himself and continuously going. And some don't need it and can just with their mind push themselves to, okay, now I have to get up and start moving.
I
So it
believe
all
we now live in a world where it's necessary for us to have as much access to utility for building and innovating and making sure that we're using the self-same technologies within the parameter of sustainability. Really important, because we cannot innovate if we don't have health. But on a different note, thank you, Jesper, for sharing that. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Harrison, you're bringing a different narrative to our lives and to our realities when it comes to happiness, and it comes to joy, and it comes to actually seeing things that we untraditionally do not see. But your work is very different, but I find it rather apropos and interesting in this new present time that we've become more virtual in the past 33 months than the past 33 years. Tell us about this path journey that you've arrived to. And I must ask, are emerging technologies helping to get you more connected to those that have been a beneficiary of participating with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll sort of just give a brief overview of sort of how I got here. I was a magician, and then COVID happened, and I started immediately using Zoom for clients who reached out and said, "Oh, we're on Zoom. Can you do it on Zoom?" So it wasn't like, "Oh, I have to now make a Zoom show that I can present to these big corporate clients." It was just like, "Do it now. We need it tomorrow." So I really started using Zoom just with the main controls that were there. And what I've found is that over the past 3 years, while I have added more and more technology that helps me do certain things that I want, I find that the technology in a lot of cases gets in the way of what I'm trying to do, because having everybody type in the chat and having it appear on the screen, like, that's great for like the use case that you want to use it for, but that does not make the meeting more engaging or more fun. It just makes it maybe more visually interesting, maybe, or maybe it's not done very well and it's not visually interesting. So what I sort of immediately realized, and this is sort of a note that I think will maybe hit home for a lot of you, is especially in the video conferencing setting, which is what I'm talking about, not necessarily like metaverse, I'm not sure how to describe it, but video conferencing setting. I immediately started to think of these calls like a room. So as opposed to like me having a stage over here and I bring in Jesper on my stage and I have an interaction with him and we do some magic, it was much more like this Zoom meeting is a room. And now I'm in a spotlight Jesper. And by spotlighting him, it's almost like we're turning everybody's attention in the room to Jesper. And then I can spotlight Bobby and everybody's attention is turning to Bobby. And then I bring it back to me. So now instead of having everybody look straight at the screen and having me bring Bobby and Jesper up on stage, it's more like I've shifted everybody's attention around the room. And I feel like more than any sort of sophisticated technology or OBS or plugins or all these things that people use, what's much more important for me, at least in my work, is to be able to act like we're all in a room together and use my voice and the way that I perform and the framing of who I'm talking to and when I talk to them and when I bring it back to me and the pacing of all of that, which is what makes my whole thing sort of come together. So I've found that, you know, the technology in its most basic form is really what I utilize. And then anything beyond that is great and it's amazing and it exists. And I sometimes pull in some of it, but it really doesn't help me in what I'm trying to do.
What an interesting consideration, Harrison, when we're thinking about the attention and mind spans of people, the attention spans of how we communicate. It's become manifold. And I believe as technologists, we're building these platforms, but we've not yet even scratched the surface to understand how what we build will be interacted by many people outside of our very limited and finite verticals of what we operate in as innovators. Kyron, I have to ask, because you are probably, between you and Harrison, probably the most different types of guests that we've ever had within a GatherVerse, far from what we're used to having, but we think it's rather appropriate. And when we came across your application, we welcome you. The relationship between human and pet, the relatability between a pal, a friend. Can you speak to the nativity of that? Can you help us to understand why these relationships are so important, especially in this virtual working world that we find ourselves in? Your mic, sir.
Right, sorry. Are we back?
You're back.
Christopher, lovely. That's a very big question, and I think it goes back to the premise of wellness. Without stability, nothing happens. And the beauty of having a relationship with an animal is you can practice day by day and hour by hour how to bring stability into your life. And think about it very simply. When you go out for a walk with a dog, what dogs will do is they'll sniff everywhere, and then a few seconds later they'll look around to see if you're behind them. They check in. So they're checking into that relationship. Can they trust you to keep an eye on them a certain distance? And what I find in today's modern world, where everybody has their mobile phone, it's like quite often the rest of the world doesn't exist. Just something 2 or 3 inches. And to put this in a practical perspective, I was talking with a football coach yesterday, and he said the biggest problem with a lot of young children now is their visuals are gone because they can't judge the distance of the ball moving to them. Anything that's beyond 1 or 2 feet, and they're in trouble. So having a pet in your life basically brings you back to the original human-animal bond. And the beauty here is you could always ask yourself day by day, is this dog or this cat in my life being treated well enough? Could I do anything better? And that's the perfect reflection of asking yourself, is my relationship with myself up to scratch? So if I can think of 5 or 6 things that I could actually do to improve my dog's emotional health, physical health, veterinary health, well, then there must be a few things that I can actually do for myself. But we're probably blocked by our own ego to even dare criticize ourselves. So with that, I would say, if you have a dog in your life, look at it differently and ask, how can this make a better world for both of us?
I see. Thank you for sharing that with us, Karen. It's emotionally felt and well expressed. When we think about, let me see. No, I'm not talking to you. Smart assistants could be so invasive, can't they? We can only imagine how much more this will be increasing as we move forward. Bobby, I've been hiking the French Alps, the Austrian Alps, exploring, if you will, the Julian Alps, the Dolomites, the Swiss Alps, in Europe. It's been incredible getting away from my screen. It's been powerful moving around again in that fashion. I haven't done that in some time. I think about the world of body shaming. I think about the world of how people look, how we're interpreted socially when we stand and look at an image. This world of visual manipulation and artistic manipulation, because we're not comfortable with how our bodies are. We're not there yet. Some of us are far from it. We know that we're sometimes more sedentary than we need to be, than we ought to be. It's a very uncomfortable discussion. But some of the way that we go about it, overall, is just not healthy. And we want to be healthier when we're working, when we're innovating, when we're building. I believe, like I know that you do, that it produces better results. But Bobby, help me to understand and help us to understand something here. The magnitude of what you do when it comes to building these vessels, these bodies, keeping us strong in these particular times. I really want you to express to us, because we're not used to hearing this as much, and we need to hear it. Why is this so important, especially now with all these technologies that are coming to help us, assist us, guide us, work with us, these tools, and it's keeping us from doing more and doing less? Why is it now so important for wellness, physical wellness of the body, for us to be paying more attention to this reality?
You know, it's important for a variety of reasons. I mean, from scientific to, you know, and activities of daily living being, better, and you're able to adapt and do more, to the positive endorphins that are released, to the bone density that you carry, to the diseases that you can get rid of or at least fight. The list goes on. From a mindset to how you carry yourself and how you believe yourself, how you feel with the person looking back at you. There's so many more positive endorphins that are released when you incorporate exercise. The problem is a lot, and I teach about this a lot, is, people don't know what to do, when to do, or how to do it. And so there's 1,000 voices coming at them all the time. There's 1,000 things, because they're stuck on their phones looking at every Instagram post or Facebook post and looking like this, and you can do this, and you could take this pill. And if you just rub your butt this way, you're going to be that much stronger here. And like all these little things that just blow my mind. But again, I respect where technology is going. Okay. So I'm not lessening it. However, it's what you're allowing yourself to be influenced with. That influence now is causing you to make decisions that are probably uncharacteristic of you, or are giving you an easy way out because of maybe some habits you may have that aren't right. And so it's simple. I teach people I call it the REC principle. I created: recognize, educate, and consistency. You got to be open to recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, so you can figure out how yourself, so you can fix those weaknesses and keep your strength strong. And you have to become consistent with it. And by doing that, what it allows you to do is to take small little steps towards growth, from exercise to movement to being more pain-free, to maybe just making your body look a little better. How about just breathing better so you can run with your grandkids versus go or climbing a mountain? What about just climbing up 3 flights of stairs? So it's a matter of, again, what are you allowing yourself to be influenced with? Are you able to recognize and listen to your strengths and your weaknesses, and drop your pride and ego and just want to learn, utilize technology for what it's there for, to give you the input? It's okay to hear that you've only walked 2,000 steps today and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's okay that you should want to know that, so you desire to go out and get another 8,000 steps, for example. It's fine. That's what you should want and desire to hear. The problem is people want to run from that. And then they get ashamed, and then the demons come in their brain, and then and it's a downhill avalanche effect. And so it's unfortunate. But I think if we just started with what we're allowing ourselves to be influenced with, what type of love, what type of character, what type of support, what type of positive mindset stuff you listen to and do, I think then things will change.
How do we make that first?
It's looking in the mirror and being honest with some of the weaknesses that you do have. It's being honest with yourself. And then it's simple. The technology is there. Go online. If you don't have the money, go online and look and research. And don't just get the Google ads that come up, or this. Find and desire to find what it is that you want to try to accomplish. Again, and that's cost you nothing to do. It might take some time, or if you're blessed, be able to go talk to someone that's going to be honest with you, and forthright, and not someone that's just going to, again, tell you what you want to hear.
It's a difficult prospect, Bobby, but a necessary one, isn't it? I sit here and listen to you, and I hope that it doesn't go in one ear out the other, that even those that are actively engaged in healthy and lifestyle can benefit with a little bit of reminder, if you will, about how precious and finite time is, and that we really truly only have a little bit of time to sojourn, if you will, in life to do these things. You talked about running with our grandchildren. Some of us don't even have grandchildren or children yet, but to be able to do these things, to simply enjoy a little bit more time healthy as we continue to move forward. We must keep that in mind, audience, don't we? Those that come to us from GatherVerse.live, we still see all of you there. And those that are sitting with us, whether on LinkedIn or YouTube or on Facebook, Twitter, you're with us. And we know that you're here on this subject of wellness because we know how important it is to you and how important it is to this GatherVerse community. And Harrison, we switch over to you because I'm sitting here thinking about not just that, the fact that you're a virtual musician, which is something I've never heard of before, but I admire from afar the courage of what it takes to do this and to follow your heart. Consider that consideration as entrepreneurs, as those that go into the gig economy boldly into the night, contractors, if you will, to go for what's not conventional, working in a platform. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't take away from that. But tell us a little bit about, has this move, this transition to become a virtual musician, made you happier?
I mean, it's hard to say. I had a daughter right at the beginning of the pandemic, so really, like, nothing even compares to the happiness of that. So I can't really like say. What I would say is that before the pandemic, I was working to be good at my craft. But at the same time, there's lots of other people who are working to be good at my craft, and with objectively were just better than me in every way as far as their ability to do the craft and their creativity and their perseverance and like all this stuff. And then what happened with virtual magic, I'm not sure why, is because I ended up doing it so much, I actually had this knowledge base that was beyond what. It didn't matter how successful you were in magic before the pandemic. Not that this is about success, but you know, it didn't matter like how high of a level on the magician's scale, whatever it may be that you were. You hadn't done as many Zoom calls as me, and that sort of gave me this ability to now finally in magic have something where I truly felt like, not necessarily that I was an authority, but I felt like I had something like really under my belt where I was able to like say like, no, I've done this a lot. Like I know what can go wrong. Like you can theoretically talk about it, but I can maybe not as intricately as what you're doing over there, but I can actually do it. You know, I've done it and I've been there and I've done it over and over again and I've learned from my mistakes. And so I would say that I'm definitely more fulfilled in that I don't really have anybody chasing me. I don't have very many people who are trying to do the same thing that I'm doing, because as a magician, you have to imagine that you spent your whole life trying to learn this like pretty difficult skill set. And then you're like, okay, well, throw all that out and do it on Zoom where you can't touch anybody and nobody can touch you. And if you hold something up on the screen, they're going to think it's fake, you know? So it's like most magicians, like, they did virtual when it was a thing, but then they said, now this is not what I'm about. This is not what I like. So they went back to their lives. But for me, because I had such a positive experience, having so many people come to me for this thing and being able to learn so much by doing it so often, now it's the only thing that I think about when it comes to magic. I don't need to be able to place something in your hand. I'm not even thinking about that kind of magic. I'm thinking about how can we do something without placing anything in anybody's hands? How can we do something for the people who have their cameras off, who are at home, who are on the live stream? You know, it's like I really try and focus on this thing, and it gives me happiness and I guess pride to think that there's very few other people in the world who are thinking about this very specific thing that I'm thinking about. And that sort of gives me the determination to say, like, I know there's something here beyond what I've already created, and I'm going to go out there and find it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. So I think that makes me happy. But as far as like general happiness, I mean, I'm always a pretty happy guy, and all of this could be thrown away in an instant, you know, if my daughter got sick or God forbid, something like that. So really it's just like, I'm just along for the ride.
Thank you for sharing that, Harrison. Really heartfelt. We really appreciate those expressions, and congratulations on the arrival of your child. Jesper, leaning over to you because I want to better understand the present mindset from the personal trainer lens in this world. Has the arrival of these technologies that we're seeing with generative pre-trained transformers and technologies such as the metaverse and the usage of headsets and more, has it made your work easier? Has it made it more difficult? Is this a good time to be a personal trainer from your lens?
You can say it is a great time because you can now reach more people than ever. I can reach people all over the globe. I can jump into the metaverse with a headset. We bang out some push-ups together. I can meet you in the local park here in my hometown. So as we expand more technology and the world becomes more and more connected, one thing is I can reach way more people and I can help way more people, but I can also help people in way more different ways. So, if you jump in, let's take the metaverse example. If you jump into the metaverse, you instead of we maybe doing push-ups and sit-ups on our floor with a headset, then we maybe play some basketball or do some boxing in the metaverse to make it a bit more fun and more playful, so it becomes more enjoyable to do.
Thank you for sharing, Jesper. We appreciate that. Kyron, I have to ask you, and let's unmute your mic while I'm asking this question, but I want to ask you something. Is the time that we're spending in the metaverse and virtual technologies as a whole, digitally, is it taking away from our time with our friends, our loved ones, and even our pets, whom many of us consider our families that are part of our lives? Is it disruptive towards these type of traditional norms and structures? Or are you seeing that these technologies could be a benefit to enhance the value of the relationships that we hold in our households and communities?
Well, what I've seen over the last few years is that it has polarized the good and the bad to the extreme. Now, very quickly on the bad, what I've seen time and time again is people who saw something on television or saw something on YouTube from a dog trainer. And keep in mind, dog training in most countries is not a regulated profession. That, Chris, if you wanted in the morning in many countries in Europe to say you were a dog trainer, you could actually get, believe it or not, indemnity insurance, and off you go. So unfortunately, the amount of very poor quality advice, so-called advice on the internet is disgraceful and it's quite dangerous. Then the second big negative factor is the puppy mills or intensive puppy farming has never been more profitable than it is today, because most of these mafia gangs are very good at their digital work. And to give you a very simple example, the European Parliament commissioned a report in 2018. This was before COVID hit. And they estimated that puppy mill farming was the third most lucrative form of organized crime in Europe. Now, in the USA, the puppy mill industry is probably worth about 1.5 billion. And the total spend on dog facilities, let's say state dog pounds, is just roughly 2 million. So that's without looking at the voluntary sector at all. So I would say straight away, people need to wise up and wise up quickly, because every 70 seconds, an American child will end up needing emergency surgery from a dog bite. So it's a minefield out there. Now, the good side, and this is what I've experienced for the better in the last few years, I've managed to basically have some fantastic years in conversations like yours, Chris, where I've poached some of your guests to be my advisors over the last few years. And this would only be possible in the internet age. With VR and AR and augmented reality, we're going into a situation where people can do things, or they can stretch their imagination, stretch their education in canine care and in dog care in ways that were never possible before. So it's actually, possible to get an AR image of what a particular dog would look like in your house as a pup, and maybe 6 months later when it's grown fully and suddenly you've got a donkey in the house without realizing it. So I would say the good side is it's a long way to go, and I think it's only in its infancy, especially in the virtual reality world. And one of your past guests, Barry Haughey, if you remember, he's an expert in VR, and I'm delighted to say I've been working with him since he appeared on your show. So, Chris, my business and my world and the dogs owe a lot to you.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you sharing that. I had a quick thought as we were listening to you share with us, Karen, that I feel like now that we've entered into this virtual state of work, or hybrid, if you will, we've come to appreciate how many of our colleagues and strangers and friends, what their homes look like, what their lives look like a little bit more. How many pets have we seen in the past 3 years from our devices? How many different children and kids playing around, and the color of their sofas? It has allowed us to be a little bit more expressive and expansive and get just that much of a purview into other people's lives. And so when we think about the correlation between happiness and the pet and the dog virtually, it all makes sense to me. Bobby, I'm coming back to you because I want to put a little bit more emphasis and context into this state of assistance, this state of activity and being active in this world. We talked about a little bit ago about why it's necessary for us to be active and to what reason that we have not been. But I want to actually talk about more of the benefits that come from being active, from being more involved, from actually taking time to say, you know what, I'm gonna put my phone down, I'm gonna put my laptop away, and I'm gonna go and be active and enjoy reality. Now, audience, for those that are sitting with us listening today, I'm bringing this up is because we often put an emphasis on technology with GatherVerse, and we also see humanity, but we tend to stray more closer to technology. I want to delve into the appreciation that we meet at the intersection of humanity and technology, and so the world in that sense is our oyster. What is the benefit for us getting out, being away from technology, Bobby, and how does that make us better for when we arrive back to technology?
I think and it's a fantastic question because, again, it's the number one. It's an addiction for a lot of people to even put that phone down. They can't, and so you got to appreciate, again, the simple things in life. Getting out, getting the fresh air, and instead of keeping your head down, getting this posture because you're walking all day long, looking down at your phone. You're out there, chest out, shoulders down, allowing gravity to take over. You're breathing in the fresh air. You know what I mean? You're talking with people. You're moving around in a way that is, again, not stuck right there in front of you, not stuck here down below you. And it's critical because if you look at some of our kids and some of our children, as I talk to people, I can't even get them to look me in the eye sometimes. And they say a half a sentence to me. It's almost like I think they want to type it on their phone and have the phone talk. And you're now losing that sense of relationships and helping really, there's a lot to be said about the energy and the connection that you feel when you're around certain people, because again, you can hear them talk, you can look them in the eyes, you can just see their gestures, you can see their body confidence, and it's gone. And you need that as an individual to, again, this is what your body's about. Science, again, I hate to always bring it back to science, is proven a lot of times, but the holistic approach and the modalities of stretching and breathing and moving and dancing and laughing, and it's a lot of times it goes to the wayside, and what forces you to laugh or forces you to do is what you're looking at right here. And so you got to give away so that you can appreciate it, and there's so much more benefit to it. When you think of exercise and movement and you think of just getting out there, your body responds more. Your body reacts faster. Your brain is more connected. Your heart is opened up for more joy, for more love, for more care. Your joints feel better. I mean, I don't like to keep going on, but it's frustrating because when you work with people who are sick, disabled, and terminally ill, and you then see people who don't see the blessing of what's out there as opposed to this, you get a little bit of a shorter fuse sometimes as a trainer or professional, because you're like, you just are missing it, and I wish you could just appreciate it. And so there has to be a disconnect. There has to be, or I truly think you lose your personality and your character in a way that you become, in some degrees, I don't want to say definable, but you sometimes don't even know the person looking back at you. You just, you just don't.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that, Bobby. I'm sitting here thinking about what you just expressed, and audience, as you're joining us here at GatherVerse.live, I think about what are the benefits of having artificial intelligence, another technology that has arrived at our doorstep. And it seems to me that might AI become so efficient to be able to serve as an assistant, a tool, utility, to be able to help us work at our daily tasks that some become mundane, become rather duplicitous, and we're able to use these tools to give us more time to stay away from technology. In other words, let this tool serve as an intermediary on my behalf to work and to build and to hack and to code and to make and to develop and to communicate with other people's AI agents, if you will, so that I could take more time to actually do what may matter more, is being more sustainable in life, keeping a more healthier disposition, a more healthier lifestyle, spending more time with my pets, spending more time in our communities, making that more better and vibrant and building, as opposed to us saying, okay, we're building AI. What's the next technology? What's the next technology? Can't we hit a ceiling at some point to say, okay, we've innovated enough. Now we get to go back to doing things that matter even more to us, because it seems like, I know here in Silicon Valley, we've created a whole lifetime culture of innovation and technology and ever building. But at what point, audience, do we stop? I remember the film Forrest Gump, and he goes running and he's running and he's running and he's running for days and for weeks and for months. But at some point, he said, okay, I'm done. I do think about that. I do think about it in consideration. Jesper, I want to ask you, when we're talking about the metaverse and we're talking about the new ways of being able to work out and to become healthier, to work together, do you feel like people really have a real appetite to want to do their work regimens and workouts in the metaverse? Or are we going back to the 24-hour fitness gym and Bally's or wherever else you call it in your local town or home? Or do you feel like people want to work more in a personal and private space where they can interact differently, that it breaks up the monotony of the average machine weight? Are they bought and sold on the metaverse when it comes to wellness activity?
No, I don't think yet people are bought into fit, what we can say, more fitness and wellness in the metaverse. Also, just speaking for personal, then in my town there's this local park where you can go out and work out. There's this small area where you have a bunch of bars to do pull-ups. You can do dips, and all just during the corona, the pandemic, there every morning, every single morning, I was there and I met the same people every single day. We wasn't relying on each other, but we started building a small community. And so as you will do your workout, you spoke to other people, you were able to socialize. So you kind of melted all these different aspects together. So you melded the socialization, you met other people, you spoke to them, you got your fitness in, you maybe shared some ideas for nutrition, how can you improve some other aspect of wellness. Some guy, he might be a personal trainer, and then you could join his class, you could maybe join an outdoor yoga class, and so on. So everything just flowed in this more like local community. And how I see it, even though we develop into be use more and more technology, you always have a opposite pole. So we will, even though there's come more technology, we'll have also this opposite, that we go completely away from all the technology. And it is good that we have these periods where we just leave everything. And that also goes as Bobby said, that can you just have a conversation with another person without looking at your phone? Just put it away. Don't show it. Don't put it on the table. Just completely make it disappear. Maybe Harrison can help with that.
That's a huge request, and thank you for sharing, Jesper. We know how attached we are to our devices. We really don't want to let them go, but at some point we'll have to. It'll become necessary, whether we like it or not. And there's been times where we've had to part company with them, if even for a little bit. Harrison, when I sit here and think about the steps that you've taken and the things that you've shared with us, I want you to reach, and I want you to lean in and talk to the audience that's watching right now, because some people are literally sick and tired of their present state of work, and they want to take a leap, and they're looking at you now and saying, if Harrison could survive doing what he does, might I be able to do the same thing? Can I go out here as an entrepreneur, as a solo individual, and succeed? What does it take in this present state, mindset-wise? Is it a move that people make to become more healthier because of the weighted pressure that they have of their current commitments? What can you speak to them to let them know what they might be interacting with on this path in the forest as they head in? Because that forest is unknown to many, except for the ones that have been there. Tell them what they might expect to see beyond the pine and the trees.
Sure. Well, I'm definitely no like motivational speaker. I can't give you the keys to anything. No way can I do that. But what I can say is that like right now, following this path, I certainly, am like I think in the previous talk, though the very last person said something like this. You really had to like believe in yourself, because I sort of like fluctuate between like, oh my God, I'm crazy. What am I doing? This is terrifying, because like there's nobody else in the world doing this, like just focusing on exactly this thing. Maybe like 2 or 3 people somewhere, but like for the most part, there's not. And then I am over here like jumping up and down in my basement, like, oh my God, this is the best idea. This is gonna work so good. And like I just have to like, formulate it to make it work. So I sort of fluctuate between those two things. And what I think is important is to like, put the real steps in place. Say like, okay, what am I trying to do here? And me specifically, I'm dealing with people who have preconceived notions about magic, preconceived notions about Zoom calls. And then I'm like offering them both of those things together. And they're like, whoa, no, bro, no, thanks. So I'm really like, but I see past that and what's possible. And so really I have to keep my eye on that ball and then take small steps in order to try and get there. And, whatever you got to do along the way to convince yourself that you're doing something great. And even if you, develop some backup plans, along the way or whatever it is, that's fine. But like, you do have to jump off the cliff. You do have to say, this is what I'm doing. Like one thing that I struggled a lot with was like, how can I repackage virtual magic to make sense in a post-pandemic world? And what I realized is I have to be a virtual magician. I can't just be a magician that does virtual magic, because then it's like, well, what is this thing? It must not be important. But my entire life has become this thing. So by really embodying that, it's allowed me to accomplish more, I think, and get into some of the more interesting situations, some of the more beautiful virtual magic shows that I've ended up doing were only because I really like jumped off that cliff and was able to, convince people that I've never met that this was this thing that I do. And they were like, okay, well, here's 4,000 people in all over the world. Let's do it. And boom, amazing show. So really, you do have to jump off the cliff. You do have to sort of focus, and you can't just be like willy-nilly all over the place. But yeah, there are certainly days where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is a terrible idea. And then there are days where, again, I'm jumping up and down. So yeah, it's definitely a journey. But those small steps and the focus and believing in the idea and making sure you have like the right motives in the beginning, I think is obviously important.
And ultimately, Harrison, what do you believe that you brought to people's lives?
A new kind of connection. I mean, I'm able to produce an event that cannot happen any other way. I'm able to bring people together in the moment and allow them to experience something together and see and hear each other, that in a lot of the cases, especially the new sort of ones that I've been working with over the past year, these are events that cannot happen any other way, that will not or would not happen any other way. They simply do not exist without the ability to have a reason for everybody to get on the Zoom call and something for them all to pay attention to and be engaged by in that moment. So like really, I instead of providing meeting entertainment, which was the first 2.5 years of virtual magic, now what I provide is a reason for people to get on Zoom, a reason for us all to come together no matter where we are. And because of the flexibility and the many different types of shows that you can do in sort of this format, once you sort of cram it into people's heads and you make them understand what's possible and they actually do it, they go, whoa,
Sure.
this is not a virtual event. This is something more. I mean, it's still a virtual event, but
Sure.
But yeah, that's what I really, that's what I think. I mean, I think I forget the question at this point, but yeah, something.
No, you answered it quite well, Harrison. Jesper, I'll ask the same thing of you. Ultimately, what have benefit have you brought to people in your life and what you do?
Boy, it's a tough question, I would say, but also a good one. But I think it's in sense that because people usually, when I speak to people and my clients, is that it always is that okay, then I have to go to the gym. It takes me 30 minutes. Then I spend an hour, and then 30 minutes back, and before you know, you have spent so much time just to start working out. And always, what I try to remind them about is that have you considered just starting doing 5 push-ups? Well, most often haven't done that. So, and it's basically you can just roll out a little bit. You get down on the floor, do 5 push-ups, and that's it. So you just make it so easy as possible. And what I've seen when I really get people to recognize that there's actually a possibility to start and then be consistent with a workout, then they feel very motivated and inspired, and they usually people they will start banging out 10 push-ups on the floor right away just to get started, which is a joy to see.
Terrific. I asked the same of you in a different way, Bobby. They come and meet you after GatherVerse. They've been meeting you for days and weeks and years. They come and interact with you. What is it that you want them to take away from their experience with you?
I just want them to be honest with themselves, to be very candid. It's really simple. You know, I want people, I want organizations, I want groups just to be able to figure out, you know, what it is that's going to make them happy from, you know, on a variety of different levels, like I mentioned in the beginning, mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically. You know, you said it though, or someone else did, and it was so important. You only have so much time here. Why not enjoy it as much as possible? Take advantage of it. It's a flipping chess match out there. You know, you got to just, you know, be consistent in your approach, stay diligent, you know, try not to be lazy, laugh a little bit, you know, and you have to be healthy. You need to exercise. I'm never going to look at anyone and say, yeah, you don't need to. You have to move. That doesn't mean you got to be the next guy doing CrossFit and trying to do backflips and pull yourself up. It could be the person, you know, again, sitting there and doing shadow boxing because that's all the energy you have today, and putting in some music and just kind of flowing in your seat for an hour. It's that simple. Embrace the positive endorphins that you can. And it doesn't have to be difficult. We choose to make it sometimes.
Indeed. Thank you, Bobby. Kyron, as I asked you our last and final question, I want to know, because you've spent so much time in the traditional world, ever before we became this darn digital, from your lens, what did we leave behind that we should keep with us?
Wow, that's I think a very simple question, believe it or not. That I'm going to go back 50 years. And we used to, you know, as a family, we'd get into the car and we'd head to the local lake, And about a half a mile from the local lake, we'd let the dog out, and my dad used to drive the car to the lake and see if the dog could catch up with the car. And this was the sort of the traditional thing every weekend. And the dog was the big part of our lives then. Now, I think what we've lost at the moment is it's like time has just compressed into everybody's day. And, when we have the AI and the VR and everything else, and we've conferences, it's like the natural world doesn't exist for us anymore. And I think that's where we have to go back to. And it's the simple things like just walking on the grass, saying hello to animals, and trying to be masters of the art of doing nothing for at least 10 minutes a day.
Well said, well expressed. Well, Matt, thank you for joining us on this kaleidoscope of exploration. There certainly was a lot said, a lot to compress. We invite you to join us again. Audience, we have 2 more final speakers that are coming up with